Hello and welcome back to Football Kentron, the only English language podcast dedicated to Armenian football. I am your host Adam, and I am joined here today by Chadens and Armen for our post World Cup qualifiers festivities. But first, before we get into everything, if you don't already, please follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel if that is your preferred method of listening to podcasts. All of our episodes are posted on there. And also share the show, man. You know, we want people to be able to enjoy Armenian football. And if you think we're good enough to share, go ahead and share us. Thank you. Now, let's just dump right into this because we have a lot to cover. First, we will be talking about Alashkert's European journey. Alashkert are in the UEFA Europa Conference League Group A, which kicks off this Thursday, and it is a brand new competition, and Alashkert are the first Armenian club to be competing in European group stage. So we have to be following this tooth and nail very closely, and we will be breaking everything down for you. We teased it a little bit in the last episode, but we kind of wanted to go over the group that Alashkert is in and kind of give our thoughts on where we think they're going to end up. So first off, I'm going to toss this over to you, Ottoman, is Lask. Tell us a little bit more about Lask.
Exciting team, to be honest, and dangerous, really. They're the Austrian Bundesliga fourth team from last season. Made it to Conference League after defeating Vojvodina from Serbia and St. Johnstone from Scotland to qualify. They didn't have a hot start to the league with only one win, 3 draws and 2 losses, kind of similar to Alashkert, because they're not in winning ways. They're danger men, or as Aram likes to say, the assisting maestro, is Korean, I believe, center forward, and bear with me with the name, Hyung Suk Hong, I believe, a central midfielder, not center forward. But Jesus, that's a hard name. And he seems like a hard player to cover, but we have the Lion Grigorian, so I trust him. They seem to be a very good mix of experience and youth, like most good teams are. Of course, they're dangerous, but one thing I want to highlight and what makes them dangerous is their huge budget, because Lask is actually sponsored, or might as well say owned by Austrian, I believe, or European super bank company Raiffeisen, and they have a lot of money to spend, and they've done their job because now they're in Europe and clearly this group's favorites.
Yes, I would say they are definitely the group favorites. And elsewhere in the group, we have Maccabi Tel Aviv. Chadens, why don't you tell us a little bit about Alashkert's Israeli opponent that they will be taking on in the first ever match?
They're one of the well-known Israeli teams. I think most people know. I'm sure our fans have heard of them, Maccabi Tel Aviv. They're featured.
I think they're the biggest in Israel.
A few years ago, they used to be always competing in Champions League, I think, trying to go for group stages, if I'm not mistaken. So they have a name that's already a statement. They finished second in the last league, last season in the league. What they've done is they've been defeated by again, hard names to pronounce, Sutjeska from Montenegro with a score of 3-1. Spartak Trnava they faced, Slovakia with a score of 1-0. They faced Shakhtar from Kazakhstan, who we usually and unfortunately we mention these names from Kazakhstan, 4-1. So they're on currently with 0 wins, 0 draws, and 1 loss in the league. So not quite on form, but again, building onto something. Something similar they have in regards to Alashkert and their squad is that they have aging players. That's an interesting thing we should be looking at in this team. And
Yeah,
they
some of those actually played against Punic when they beat Punic, so that may be a good comparing point for Coach Grigorian.
We need to look at that as well for us. Yeah, we need to look at that. We need to keep an eye on that. They've got several number of foreign players in the squad with Israeli foundation. Another thing we should be keeping eyes on, because having foreign players brings a different mixture into a team.
Yes, and to round off the group, we have HJK Helsinki, the Finnish Giants, who finished top of the league in the Finnish league. They were in the UEFA Champions League qualifying round 1, just like Alashkert, and they defeated Budonkrost. I don't know how to say that, but I hope I said it correctly. 7-1 on aggregate, humongous victory. And in the second round of the UCL, they lost to Malmo narrowly 4-3, and then dropped down to the Europa League, where they defeated Azeri side Neftitsi, I guess that's how it's pronounced, 5-2 before Neftchi, whatever. Who cares about them? Before
gas.
Yeah, before looking
oil and gas company.
Yes, and they made it to the Europa League playoffs just like Alashkert, but they lost to Fenerbahce of Turkey 6-2 on aggregate. On paper, this team is very similar to Alashkert in terms of the league that they play in, the quality of players and the quality of the team. However, we know that Helsinki is the largest team in Finland by a lot.
Yeah,
and
their pedigree, their tradition.
Exactly, and Alashkert really isn't. So it's a little bit of a toss up here. Looking at the schedule, Alashkert start away to Maccabi Tel Aviv on September 14th, which is the Thursday of when this episode is being released, and then on the 30th they are at home to HJK, and then on October 21st they are home to Lask before going away to Lask in November, and away to HJK, and rounding off the group at home against Tel Aviv. So let's start with just the first match, because like I said, we will be covering Alashkert's European journey pretty much in every episode because they will have played a match. And we first want to start with their match against Tel Aviv away on September 14th. We could just discuss maybe this match a little bit in particular and then go in our overall thoughts for this. So, Ottoman, let's start with you. What are your expectations with Alashkert in this group as a whole? Let's start with that one.
I expect them to get 1 or 2 wins at home, because I am looking at their fixture, and damn, it looks hard, especially away, because you open up the season opener for them is going to be Maccabi Tel Aviv in Israel, a very well-established team. They know how to handle things, and especially how to greet a newcomer like Alashkert. That's going to be tough. Second tough away game is going to be in November against Lask in the Alps, and November Alps is going to be snowy. Same goes for HJK away, and by the end of November, almost December, peak winter for them. So away fixtures ain't looking good for Alashkert at all. They must, and by all means, I highlight must, capitalize all 3 games at home in Yerevan. So, by the way, if you're going to be in Yerevan anytime when Alashkert play at home, please go to these games. They're going to be very important for you to support them.
Very true. If you are fortunate enough to be in Armenia when Alashkert is playing, definitely go support, because it's not every day you get to go to European competition. Charents, what are your thoughts overall with Alashkert in this group? How do you think Alashkert will perform?
We have good chances at home, like Armin said. Possibly 1 or 2 wins. I do see it. I don't see very huge losses. However, the performance of the Alashkert of Alashkert's league season, it's kind of scary what they're gonna do in Europe. I don't see that they're gonna be that big of a challenge against some teams, especially these teams that have very good European caliber.
Nice. And I'll give my thoughts a little bit. I think I'm not really expecting for Alashkert to get into the top two. I think Lask is going to clean this group out, and I think they're going to do so very easily. If Alashkert can get a win and a couple of draws, I think for me personally, I'll be happy. I don't see them getting top two and progressing unless we're overestimating Tel Aviv. I know that Alashkert is going to be the most, I would say, not difficult in terms of like they're going to be the best team and the most challenging team, but most challenging in the sense of that because of how Grigorian has Alashkert playing with such disciplined defense, I think they're going to be the most frustrating team for everyone else in this group. I don't see Alashkert scoring a lot of goals, despite signing 2 new Brazilian strikers, as if just because they're Brazilian doesn't necessarily mean they're better, but whatever. That's a discussion for another time. But in my eyes, agree. Yeah, in my eyes, I think draws. I think we'll see more draws than losses and wins for Alashkert. I would say that's my pretty specific prediction. Also, just a side note, besides signing the 2 Brazilian strikers, they also had an opportunity to register more players for the Conference League. So their squad size is going to be a lot bigger than what we had saw during the qualifying rounds, where we only saw like 5 or 6 players on the bench during the matches. And it looks like goalkeeping is going to be one of the big question marks. I don't know who played today. I'm not sure. I don't know if you know. Chancharevic played today. So it seems like for some reason Yurchenko is just not going to be playing. And I don't know why, but that's just what it is. I don't think Chancharevic is a better goalkeeper than Yurchenko at all.
Not at all.
But you know what? That's what Grigorian does, and I think he's going to frustrate all of us by not playing many Armenian players. So
I think Yurchenko after the national team window, I think Yurchenko's injury came back a little bit, and you could see that during the last 2 games he was a little upset when moving. Another thing I wanted to highlight about Alashkert's squad, other than the Brazilian strikers and another, I believe, Russian or Serbian midfielder from Russia with a vast career in Russia, Alashkert actually brought 2 young Armenian defensive prospects. One of them we have talked about. It's Horik Bayramian's younger brother, Levon, who I think is already registered to play Conference League. And the other one is, I believe, Artem Yurgianche, wasn't he? 21-year-old center-back from Lokomotiv Moscow's academy. That's going to be interesting to see.
Yes. And yeah, Gyurgian. Yep, he has been brought in, and we're hoping we're not putting too much pressure on him, but looking at the center back options that they have.
Of course.
They have Jovanovic, they have Gyurgian, they have Boljevic, they have Davoyan, who I don't see him playing, but
Davoyan is a
fullback. Yeah, so they don't really have that many central defensive options, honestly. Here, Kirchikov, that's why I forgot, the former Noah defender. So they have pretty aging. 3 out of the 4 central defenders are really old. And hold up, now that I'm looking at this list, oh, there we go. There he is. Daron Voskanyan. That's who I was missing. So yeah, they have a good set of central defenders. I don't know how much time Gyurjan's going to actually get, but I'm going to preface this by saying that I don't think they signed him for no reason, and I don't think Grigorian brought in a new central defender for no reason. So hopefully he can get some playtime, and you know what? If he ends up actually being a decent central defender and actually gets a lot of playtime in Europe, maybe a national team call-up can be in the WIMS. We don't know.
But no need to rush him. I mean, it's going to be his first steps as a pro, and he's very young at a position that young players don't usually get that much play time, so it's going to be all about rotation for him. And same goes to Levon Bayramian. Rotation, and sooner or later they will get their chance in Europe.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. The other transfer that you're thinking about, I think, was Marko Milinkovic. He was signed on a free transfer from Giresunspor in Turkey. Very interesting one there. Former Slovan Bratislava player. So Alashkert have definitely bolstered their team a lot. I don't think. Again, it just seems like there are so many foreigners in this team, and they're continuing their reputation of being mercenaries, and that doesn't seem like that's going to change soon. All right, well, wrapping it up again, this Thursday, September 14th, Alashkert open their European journey against Maccabi Tel Aviv. The matches, if you are in the US, I believe, are going to be available on Paramount Plus on demand to watch. They're not necessarily going to be on television. And in Armenia, I believe V News actually has the broadcasting rights for the Conference League this year for the next 4 years, and it's my understanding from what I've read that V News is planning on starting a television channel in Armenia where they will be having all of the broadcast rights for all football, so including the domestic league, including all European competition, national team matches. It's going to be a football and basketball dedicated sports channel in Armenia because they also sponsor the basketball league as well. So
yeah, and Edgar Manucharian's show is from VBet company, so they're doing some serious and good work. I welcome this idea.
Yeah, so that's going to be great. Hopefully they still make it readily available for everyone outside of Armenia, because we like watching the league on YouTube. It's very good for people, diasporans like us who don't live in Armenia, and everyone else in the world. All right, let's move on to the Armenian under-21 qualifiers, where Armenia faced the Faroe Islands and the Ukraine, who, by the way, somehow Faroe Islands drew against France. Don't ask me how, but it happened. Armenia opened their second match, I would say, not necessarily opened, their second match against the Faroe Islands with a 2-0 win. Nada Grigorian and Mizoryan were shining figures in Armenia under-21's matches so far, before traveling away to the Ukraine and losing very narrowly 2-1 against the Ukraine, which was more of a conservative defensive approach. During that Ukraine match, I watched the whole 90 minutes, and Armenia was trying to deploy a counterattack, and it just didn't pan out that well, especially in the second half. Not really much to say here, honestly. Boys, do you guys have anything to add?
Yeah, the team does look like it's starting to click little by little. So, yeah, looking forward to more performances and being able to assess how the team unfolds over time.
Yeah, and one thing we can say is, of course, this Armenia under-21 team is essentially Bekma from the Armenian Premier League, which is the military club. But it also does include some of the other players that play outside of Armenia now.
A little sparkles of Urartu as well, like Grigorian.
Yes. And also it includes Kochkanian, I believe was his name, Sergei Kochkanian,
from Rostov.
The fullback from Rostov, which
you're gonna hear more about him. Yeah.
He's a very, very, very exciting prospect for us. And
no spoilers though.
Yeah, no spoilers though. All right, now let's move on to the Armenian Women's National Team World Cup qualifiers. Chadens, walk us through or remind our listeners, rather, who the Armenian Women's National Team will be facing in their Women's World Cup qualifiers that kick off this week.
A short, brief description, reminder, whatever you want to call it, that we have the teams against us: Norway, Belgium, Poland, Albania, and Kosovo. So, like we mentioned a couple of times in our previous episodes, they have won 2 games, 2 draws, and 1 losses in the previous 5 matches. That's not in the World Cup qualifiers. Just to clarify, it's the games that the Armenian women's national team has played. So it involved the tournament funded by FIFA, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And they played 1 game, a friendly. Boys, was it a friendly against Kazakhstan? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, friendly.
That we lost, unfortunately. But either way,
No, we won
there's
one, we
some.
We
lost one.
won, lost one against them. Lost
Oh,
the
sorry.
first one,
Okay.
which is the only loss.
There we go. Yeah, that's the one. It was 2 legs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something built. There's something been built in this team, and that's why it's really exciting to be watching these games as well.
Yes.
On
And
YouTube, they're gonna be live, I think.
yes. And Armen, why don't you walk us a little bit through the women's national team squad that head coach Armen Sanamyan invited?
Yeah, we have goalkeepers Lena Andreasian from Punic and Armenia Harutyunyan from Punic as well. And third goalkeeper from Punic is actually Suzan Sirakhanian. And one goalkeeper we have from Hayasa FC, Mariam Nalpantian. Defenders, we have star MVP Ani Rugassian from Punic. She used to be at Alashkert, and now, like most of Alashkert's roster, went to Punic as a whole. So we really expect a lot of results from Punic this time, because most of the team have played together at Alashkert. More national team defenders with Nora Yerian and Maria Sakhinova, both from Punic. More Punic defenders, but not as used in the national team starting. But now they're called Anyuta Galstian and Nelly Khalatian. Then we have from Hayasa FC Liana Ghazarian, and 3 what we call legionnaires from abroad, defendings. Christine Alexanian from Zhilstroy in Ukraine, Armine Khachatrian from Okshetpes in Kazakhstan. She actually was the scorer of one of the last national team goals, Armine Khachatrian. And of course, Sydney Vermillion from Blue Hearts in the USA. We go on to the midfielders, Nairi Dermagadichian from Punic, Luisa Ghazarian from Punic as well, Herine Chopiyan and Ani Karapetian from Punic, Karine Yerian from Hayasa, Veronica Satrian from Punic, Emma Baboyan from Hayasa, and our captain and the one midfielder to play abroad, Olga Osipian from Zhitlobut in Ukraine. She is a star. Follow her games and then her plays, individual plays more often, because she does some good stuff. On to the forwards, Anna Dalakian from Hayasa. Then we got 3 Punic forwards in Davina Ababayan from, we know her from previous national team call-ups, Baizara Sadrian and Susana Badalian as well from Punic. And 2 strikers from abroad, Oksana Pislova from Voskhod in Ukraine, and of course, I would say the Henrik Mkhitaryan of the women's national team, but for a change, actually, she does deliver, Maral Artin from Castellon, Spain, in Spain. What a star Maral is.
Yes, and we are very much expecting this Armenians women's national team to provide some entertaining matches. There is no real expectations of this women's side to win or to qualify. As you know, was mentioned in our interview with Football Federation of Armenia Executive Committee member and former director of women's football in Armenia, Anna Tadevosyan, said that even a couple wins and a couple draws would be huge results for Armenia. There's no real expectation for us to go out and like defend and counter and nick a victory away to Norway or Belgium or even Poland. I mean,
look, they have some objectives.
Yes,
but we're not like expecting that we're gonna go and score like 3 goals.
Yeah,
away games.
Do you know the problem with this group, the qualification group we got?
What?
It's an issue.
Elaborate.
yeah, it's an issue me and Tito discuss like often, and whenever there's a national team draw, we pray on this and we hope for this, that we don't get either Albania nor Kosovo, because there are two national teams, be it men's or women's. They are often considered and regarded as underdogs, but they're not really that, because despite what their ratings, what their rankings might suggest, they have a huge diaspora in Austria and most of all Switzerland. And we know for a fact how good the Swiss football system and structure overall is. So Kosovo, even though they're newly and recently independent, they have this tendency in Albania as well, actually, to call up players from their own diaspora, and their diaspora, unlike ours, is much more heavily football inclined, and they have like an insane amount of players. Some players like Janusaj, Kasami, so many players that are of Albanian and Kosovar origins, and if they do go down that path, both Albania and Kosovo are very hard teams. So don't underestimate them either.
Yeah, and it just goes to show that we have a very new program in Armenia. The women's national team hasn't played in a qualifier in over a decade, so this is a new team. Fortunately, a lot of these players already played together for Punic and Hayasa, which is a good sign. And we do have sprinkles of diasporan talent in there, like Vermilion, who Sydney, she's fantastic fullback, great defender. And we also have our gem Maral Artin, who is, like you said, like Henrik, but actually delivers. So
well, I'm sorry for the comparison, but
yeah. So
and
just
the captain.
Just to give a little bit of context, we're not saying, because it's the women's national team, we don't think they're going to compete for the top spot. No, it's just even the people who are heading this women's program in Armenia are telling us that to curb our expectations, because this is a new team, it's a fresh program, and we need to be very patient with how we see progress.
And psychologically, it's different as well, because these players are coming and they're actually working and going to be playing for the World Cup, to go to the World Cup. And like you said, over a decade, that means there are some gaps that we as a national team do not have, and it's what we need to build on.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about these other countries in our group have had 10 more years over us of developing and adjusting their program. So just watch their matches, support the team. Their first match is away to Norway, I believe, on September 16th. And then Yerevan against Poland on September 21st. We will be covering the women's matches as well. Follow us on Twitter for some updates on that. Now to our main topic of this episode. What
we have to
went wrong? We are going to discuss Armenia's World Cup qualifying matches as a whole, and we have identified 4 different topics/themes from the 3 matches as a whole. We're not talking about specific players. We're not talking about specific instances and specific circumstances or passages of play. We are talking about issues that are thematic through these 3 matches. So just to go over for everyone who has somehow already has the luxury of forgetting these results, Armenia drew a 0-0 away to Macedonia in the first match, which we thought, okay, decent result. Then we went away to Germany and got slaughtered 6-0. And then we drew 1-1 at home to Liechtenstein. From everything awful possible. So we decided as a team, we're going to take a few days and we are going to take a step back and we are going to view this international break as a whole and kind of dissect and understand what went wrong and try to give an explanation to our listeners rather than pointing at particular players or just particular passage of play where things were done incorrectly. Because there is, I know Armen's going to hate this, but it's very apparent when you take a holistic view of everything that there were just things that were red flags left, right, and center even before a ball was kicked. So first, we are going to be talking about squad selection. That is the first topic. We are going to break this down into two parts. One part being picks that we feel were wasted, and then the second part being who was left at home that otherwise should not have been. And of course, in retrospect, this is a lot easier to say. However, there are several players we picked in here, and we were just like, why?
Nah, we called it. We called it. Come on.
We did call it. All right, let's start out in goal. I don't think there's a point in going over the goalkeepers. Bushnev was that random person that was brought in, except he didn't see a minute, and we didn't expect him to. So I don't even think it's worth discussing in goal because Yurchenko is clearly our undisputed number one right now, despite making a unreal mistake against Liechtenstein. So we will actually start out in defense, and there are some big question marks in defense. Chadens, let's start with you. Out of all of the defenders that were called up for this national team camp, we had Haroyan, Kalisir, Voskanyan, Mukoyan, Arman Hovanesyan, Hovanes Hambarzumian, and Kamo Hovanesyan, who were deployed as defensive options for Joaquin Caparros. Which one of these picks to you seemed like a pretty wasted pick?
Definitely Magoyan. Apologies if he's listening to this, but I mean, I didn't understand why this was.
I think he speaks English.
For me, anyone who's listening to this, I say this with respect, because I understand you're picking experience, etc., this kind of things, but let's say that Haroyan got a red card. Charlie Sear broke his knee. I don't know. And then you're left with Daron, who we do not trust, and you're left with Magoyan. You say, okay, Magoyan has got experience. He's gonna be facing Germany, etc., etc. Okay, yeah. If we're gonna break this down, we're gonna have to look at the worst case scenarios, right? So I'm taking the worst case scenario, and this happens, and then there's Magoyan, and you say, okay, he's got experience, fantastic. He might be very useful against Germany. But this is the thing. I understand we're a team that we're looking at players who they understand the game. They've played in Euro 2012 qualifiers. They've played in the World Cup 2010 qualifiers. But that doesn't mean much, because when you have other players who are ready to play and are performing well as well at the same time, who are on form, such as Kardashian, which most of us like. It's you have him on the bench, let's say, and you see him and you say, of course I will be comfortable to use him rather than hesitantly putting on Magoyan because you have to.
Yeah,
not Magoyan in specific, but in specific for Kardashian not being picked.
Yes. To piggyback on that, Makoyan is now 35 years old. That guy hasn't seen international play in like 7 years.
You see?
He's not even playing that well for Ottawa, honestly, because their defense is very leaky, despite scoring heavily. But there was another glaring area of the pitch that we felt definitely could have had much better picks. Ottoman, I'll let you take the reins on this one.
Are we talking about the other random call up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, I like him. Ishkan Geloyan. I like his play style. I like the way that he possibly has some added value to the team, but that he's not experienced at all in competitive games. I mean, because the Russian second tier is not all that competitive, especially for a national team like ours that is already aiming higher than Russian second tier level. No disrespect again to Ishkhan, who is a good player, has been cursed with the injuries. He was about to make his Russian Premier League debut a couple years ago and got postponed and definitely suspended after a huge injury, and has been playing Russian second tier again since. Of course, it's not going to reject the national team call-up. Who is, right?
Yeah.
But if you're the coach, you have to realize that's not the call. That's not who you call.
Yeah. And I think if we're talking about another call-up that I'm going to point out that I know Armen is going to be in agreement with me on this one, someone who was initially, I would say, very good for Armenia and has shown signs that he would be a good player for us, but also has had a lot of red flags raised several times, Wope Marangulo. He, again, another player. He's 29. He plays in Armenia. He was a naturalized citizen. He had some good games, and I think in terms of if we were talking about the Nations League, I thought that was his level, and that's a good level for him to play at. But
yeah,
he's not a player you start against Germany. He's just not, and
or at any competitive game that's not Nations League Division C or D.
Exactly, and again, there was other well-deserving players or players that we feel have already featured for this national team and have done a really good job in doing so, that were left out in favor of Angulo, which of course we're talking about Armen's favorite central midfielder. Yeah. So Gare Muradyan. It's just a little bit disappointing. So I think there was just little aspects of this squad here and there that we were just like, it just didn't. I don't know. It just there could have been other players.
Small mistakes that make big problems.
For example, we do have Ishkan Geloyan, right? He's a winger, an attacker. He's a forward. He's 29. Alternatively, we have Geram Kadimian, who has played for the national team. I'm not his biggest fan, and I've said that many times. But he has, when he is on the field, made a difference. He has won penalties. He has
given set up
goals. He has proven himself. And Ishkan was clearly, to me, a emergency button for Briasco not being able to come to the national team. That's clearly what it was to me. I don't get it. It just didn't work.
If you're in the audience and you do get why these calls were made, reach out, because we want to know what the hell.
Yeah, and we're people that look at this team and think about this team a lot. And this one was out of the blue. Another area on the pitch I want to focus on for a brief moment is left back. Famously,
oh my God,
Kamo Hovhannisyan is the starting fullback on the left side for the Armenian national team, despite being a right midfielder by trade, where he plays extensively for Kairat, his club team. For some reason, when he plays for the national team, he plays left back, and honest to God, this guy does not know how to play left back. And we've said this time and time again, that Kamo does not have the necessary skills to be able to be deployed as a defender at all. And yet he keeps on being played despite having Arman Hovhannisyan, 28-year-old, very experienced captain of Punic, who's actually left-footed, who can actually pass. Vice captain.
The captain is Serap Grigoryan, who's actually also a left back.
There you go. So we're talking about a fullback option who sat there on the bench for 3 matches, who is an actual fullback in place of a player who is clearly visibly terrible at the job. And I understand why Kaparos picks Kamo at left back in matches against a team like Liechtenstein, because you care about your fullback going forward more than you do about defending. But he hasn't done that only against Liechtenstein. He did it against Romania, where Como was at fault for the goals. He did it against Germany, where Como was demolished. They attacked his side through pretty much the entire match because they knew he was the weakness.
We can go into the fun zone.
Yeah. Armin, explain to them what the fun zone is.
Well, my dear audience, against Germany, if you noticed, our Twitter account published a photo with a graphic, basically, of a football pitch with the lineups, Germany and Armenia. The fun zone for the Germans, or Bermuda Triangle, was Armenia's left defensive flank, which, not by coincidence, was comprised by three very specific players in the aforementioned Ubey Marangulo and Kamo Hovannessian. And the third player was the left central back, Daron Voskanian. So you have Ubey Marangulo at left defensive mid, Kamo Hovannessian at left fullback, and Daron Voskanian at left center back. That triangle was where Serge Gnabry, Timo Werner, and Leon Goretzka, I believe, had so much fun against Armenia that actually 4 of the 6 goals were scored, conceived, and finally conceded on that side. Actually 5. Make it 5.
Yep. And it's just, I mean, like, not that we expected to win against Germany, because we said, of course, we don't, and we didn't. And it was just not good.
We called it.
Yeah, we called it. And elsewhere, I would say on the right side of defense, Hovhannes Hambarzuman, of course, who has been our staple at right back, has played well. I mean, you can't.
Solid.
He played solid against Macedonia.
Sadly.
He got injured against Germany, but in his place, David Derderian came in.
Good.
And he did very well. And we are people who are calling for Jordi Ararat to be brought into this team, who is a right back. But I think Derderian held his own very well. And against Liechtenstein, I think he played the full match, and I think he did fantastic. I think he had a great game.
He set up Heno for the penalty.
He set up with a very brilliant pass. So
pass, beautiful, yeah.
I think that's a player that exceeded our expectations, I would say. And if we're talking central midfield, we had some surprise additions, which I called Eric Vardanyan, who I was very excited to see in this team until I realized with the first kick of the ball that he is a creative midfielder that's going to be forced to play as a center forward in a 4-4-2, which is never going to work.
Yeah, that was weird.
That's the exact same problem we've had with Henrik. It's literally, we had 2 Henriks on the pitch, 2 creative people who didn't fit into the formation and just caused, like, it was just disruption. And I think Vardanyan is a great player. I think if he's deployed at number 10, 100% he's super effective. But
or off the wings as a super sub, because he's clearly, his biggest problem is fitness. So you don't want to start him, and let alone start him up front, man. That was also very random.
Yeah, it was very random. I didn't, and then you have a young Edward Svercian sitting there on the bench watching Ubey Marangulo get like trampled over. But anyway, that's enough about squad selection. We spent a little too much time on that one. Our second issue, on our second thing we have identified of what went wrong in the FIFA World Cup qualifiers, as I have dubbed it, as striker, no striking. If you've ever watched Dora the Explorer, you know where that cadence came from. The last time a striker for the Armenian national team scored a goal was at home against Estonia in the Nations League. That was several matches ago. And that was done by Alexander Karapetyan. Now, think about that for a second. Since then, we've played 6 World Cup qualifiers. We've played 3 Nations League matches. We've played 2 friendly matches. So we're talking about 11 games where a striker, and we play in a 2-striker formation, where a striker has not scored a goal. And we have Adamian, we have Karapetyan, we have Balakian. He even tried playing Mkhitaryan at striker. We've had Barseghian play at striker. Anytime a player has played at striker for the Armenian national team, they have not done it. And I understand that the 4-4-2 and the way that Kaparos deploys it is meant to be a wing play. But if you nullify our wings, which what Macedonia did very effectively, and that's what Germany did, we play terribly. So, and even against a team like Liechtenstein, the striker didn't score. So we scored off a penalty. We didn't even score an open play. The last time we scored an open play was the equalizer against Romania that Haroyan scored, and that was a central defender.
Yeah, and Spertian's goal, beautiful goal.
Yeah, but Haroyan's goal came after Spertian's goal. That's why I said that's the last time we scored an open play. But so our last 2 goals have been penalties, and we've only scored 1 goal in 270 minutes in these qualifiers, in this set of matches. That's very, very, very bad. Obviously, that seems like a very obvious thing to people that Armenia clearly didn't score enough goals in this set of matches. But the fact that we haven't had a goal come from a striker is really, really concerning. Chadens, what are your thoughts?
Even I'm conflicted that even if, let's say, you brought Gorman Velian to play, again, it's debatable because you cannot be 100% certain that the midfielders would provide for him. For example, if you play just Gore and say go and score a goal, that's not how it works. It's more complicated than we actually think. So I would really not really say much.
That's what I was gonna get into. If you don't have creativity, strikers ain't gonna score. I mean, what we lacked this window in attack, especially, was creativity. We talk about the victories against Iceland and Romania, and of course Liechtenstein as well. But those 2 games, we scored 5 goals in 2 games with actually with a different squad, with different selection, and our strikers didn't score a single goal that time during those 2 games. But that's because they were busy creating. They were busy helping the team build. And when the team works as a team and everyone creates, everyone defends, everyone does everything together, it doesn't matter who's going to score, because you're going to score 5 goals in 2 games. 0 from strikers, sure, but 5 goals nonetheless. And more importantly, 5 deserved goals. We deserved both wins. We played better as a team both games. This time it just wasn't there. Creativity. We were lacking creativity big time. That's the issue.
Let me pose this question to you guys, and I'll let whoever wants to take it can take it. Do you think a change in formation is due?
Not necessarily. I mean, could work, might not work, but that's
so
it doesn't depend solely on that.
Clearly, if
what
personnel
Armin said,
go ahead, Chadens.
No, what Armin said, but also it's again beyond that. It's more than that. It's more complicated than that. Exactly. Firstly, you got to think tactically. We're not a football club that we're playing every week to be certain that one formation works. So you cannot be certain that 4-3-3 will always work. Let's say we play 4-4-2. Firstly, it depends from the match that we're playing against, Macedonia, Germany, whatever. Then it depends on the tactic that you're going to use with that formation, and then also the players that you have. If you have players who are not fullbacks, how are you going to play, let's say, with 4 at the defense? On the long run, you cannot be 100% sure that you're going to stick to one formation, because again, the deployment of the players, but also we have I'll emphasize on the have, because us as a podcast, we already shared so many names over these 28 episodes. The that
it's
we
not that
can
Armenia
bring
lacks
so many.
depth.
Yeah, we're not lacking players. It's not like we're lacking players. It's just a matter of which player comes, when do we use him, and how do you use him. It's simple, but also complicated after that.
So I think this is the bottom line that I think our listeners want to know is if you are Kaparos, what adjustments do you make in these next matches against Iceland away and Romania away to ensure that you do score goals? Because like Armen said, yeah, we strikers weren't scoring goals, but and our most of our goals were coming from our wingers, but the important part was that there were goals coming. How do you solve this issue? Because it's clearly an issue. For me, looking at these three matches, all three of these teams, and this includes Liechtenstein, which is the only team we scored against, and that was a penalty, not even during open play. All three of these teams easily figured out how to nullify Armenia's attack. How do you remedy that? How do you fix that? How do you fix our goal scoring issue that is very, very evident?
On my part, on my behalf, it's always gonna lead back to one thing and one thing only, which is personnel selection, and said personnel selection based on merit, based on form, not market value, not experience. How Caparros phrased it. What good does experience do? How does experience help if, say, Kamo, who was actually one of the Armenia's national team's top 10 most capped players, let that sink in, is Kamo Hovhannisyan, who is he's a good player, he's a good dude, we like him, he's been around forever, he's very experienced, he has added value on a good day, but he lacks some very basic skills, and especially for a player of his position, of his role, very basic defensive IQ instincts, because defending is part IQ and formation and part instincts, and Kamo it isn't that, you know. The biggest concern for me is that we have 4 or 5 players starting this last window that shouldn't be starting. Not next time. I mean for a good time. We need merit. We need the team based on merit and the team that represents us. That's my big problem.
Okay, all right. I get what you're saying. Hopefully, like we had said, last time we had a similar issue was in the Nations League, the 2 draws that Armenia had against Georgia and Estonia, which coincidentally was when Henrik played in October. Kaparos was able to come back and solve these issues with it way more depleted squad with far less talented players than he has at his disposal now, and he was able to figure out. So hopefully he studies the game tape and he's not stubborn enough to change his ways a little bit. The third point I want to get into is mentality. Ottoman, I'll let you take this one away.
Mentality goes back to what I said. Merit, mentality. Will, if you want to say it. What happens when you give the armband, the captaincy, to your, say, brand exposure player, to your most well-known player? And this is a problem we have identified for a couple years now, and over time we see more and more people like us identify it and call it out, because we don't need to sugarcoat no more. I mean, we are moving to better things, and for us to make it to like a World Cup or a major tournament, we have to be our best selves, and for that we can't afford to sugarcoat things. When you give the armband to your brand exposure player, the most marketable player, the best known player, instead of choosing your captain based on leadership qualities, we are talking about who is captain material, right? This election will have an effect on the whole squad. The captain is the man that leads the team, and if the man that leads the team does it with fear and doubt, as actually a picture against the German game showed our captain stepping onto the Mercedes-Benz Arena, kind of looking down and worrisome and stuff. The rest of the team will follow. Like who? I'm gonna ask you guys this question, okay? Who sounds more like a better captain, right? Exhibit or player A? A player that steps onto the pitch looking like, as I mentioned, looking down, worrisome, looking to his boots, that when he's on the pitch and the ball rolling, he backs off challenges, kind of like scared a little bit, doesn't contribute on defense, doesn't mark the way he should as a midfielder, as his role. He's one of the team. He doesn't matter that it's a captain. He's one of the team. He has to mark and doesn't. That publicly complains that his teammates don't take as many responsibilities upon themselves as they should. That has previously rejected national team call-ups for I don't know, undisclosed reasons, not just injuries. And then when he is not called up, throws kind of a public tantrum on social media, knowing very well the impact that that tantrum may have on the team and ends up having. Or player B, a player that inspires bravery, toughness, a player with that leads actually the team with the ball. When he sees that the team is lacking creativity, he takes the ball and the responsibility upon himself, even though he may be the last man to have that responsibility based on his role on the pitch as part of the team. A sober, low profile man, yeah, that does his job kind of on the average day, on the average game, but is already well known to step up and save the day when things get tough. A player that, when a previous coach called his team amateur and other names I don't want to say, this guy steps up and stands up for his teammates, even before assuming a role of captain. Having taught his own previous coach a lesson on teamwork, professionality, and most of all, humility. A player teaching a coach. A player that was even willing to put his career on hold, dropping out of a valuable transfer to Greece himself to go to the front lines and defend his country. Didn't happen, but he was willing to do it. And he was stopped by national team staff and then the federation and the coach Caparros himself. Which player sounds more like a captain to you guys? Player A or player B?
I think there's a very clear, obvious answer to that one, and it is player B. But I think that just goes to show you the mentality as a whole that we have. When the team is playing without a care about their brand, and I don't think this only goes for Mkhitaryan, and I'm going to be honest with this one. I'm going to be very, very critical of Tigran Barseghian during these qualifying matches, because he is a player who had an opportunity to move to bigger clubs, to do bigger things, to do better things, but he instead turned it down because he wanted to try to use the international break as an opportunity to grow his personal brand and try to get an even bigger and better move. And sure, I understand that from a player's perspective, but I said it before, and I'll say it again, it is a very, very big gamble on his part to do that, and the gamble did not pay off because he looked
I agree.
awful.
And I have actually, to build on that and to build on Tico and his window actually is very, very well linked to my problem with Heno, whom I love. I who doesn't love Heno, right? But for the team, there's actually a tweet from one of our audience that was spot on. He said, literally, when Heno plays, the national team doesn't. And this kind of extends from a tactical point, which was a tweet, to a mental point, which is my point I'm elaborating right now. Because when this was very clearly seen against Liechtenstein when Heno was on the pitch. He's like everyone thinks, okay, Heno is there. He is clearly the one that with the most chances of breaking through or whatever, or finishing, or taking the best course of action, which is not necessarily the case. What happened against Liechtenstein? There was an open play, right? Tikran Barsekian with the ball off the middle, with the off the central lane of the pitch. He had Heno to his right, marked by 3 or 4 players, and he had Alexander Karapetyan making a great run across himself in like kind of a crossing Tico. It was just in guaranteed Kara was gonna make a one-on-one against the keeper, and it was just a matter of Tico leaving the ball to a simple pass to Kara. It was gonna be a one-on-one. Kara, a center striker with a clear profile for scoring, he was gonna be like in his natural habitat. There was no way that was not gonna be a goal. Instead, what Tico did was, okay, Heno's to my right. He is better than Kara. Let's give it to Heno. He gave it to Heno. Heno lost the ball, and we wasted what would have been the winning goal. It's little things like that that luckily this time was very evident to me, and I was able to see it. But it doesn't have to happen. Doesn't have to happen. The team must not think like that. The team must think as a team.
Yes, and that kind of plays into our fourth and final point as to what went wrong in these FIFA World Cup qualifiers is quality over form and building over old ways. Let's start with you, Chadens, on this one. One thing that we've noticed with the Armenian national team, and this is especially evident with calling players up like Mukoyan, for example, is that we tend to have a very difficult time breaking old habits. And we tend to have a very difficult time accepting the fact that things in football, such as rotation and giving other players minutes and the opportunity to grow as players, doesn't necessarily happen to us. In relation to squad selection, it was already an issue selecting experience over quality, who just happened to be in form. As you had mentioned previously, Kartashian is the most notable one from this national team camp. He's been the best defender in the league. He has experience given his young age, and he wasn't even selected.
Unbelievable.
Going to the point about having quality and rotation to make you more comfortable with having that change. Why do you think we have such a difficult time doing that? Why do we leave players like Kartashian at home and play Daron Voskanyan, who has clearly had errors left, right, and center throughout his career? Although, as I said, I have defended him very recently because I do think he's been playing very well. I just don't think he's a player you can play against Germany and get away with.
Exactly. He's been playing well for what he is.
Exactly. Which is, you can play him against Liechtenstein. Totally fine. You can play him against even Macedonia. He played well.
Yeah, it was decent.
But
don't expect, that's the thing, don't expect him to play well all 3 games. That's what happened to Camo. Camo started all 3 games and played 90 minutes. He's a player that can play good only 1 or 3 games.
Exactly.
Daron's the same.
But that's the thing, though. I disagree there. Just because it's Daron, no, he shouldn't play the 3 games. You guys are saying that because he's Daron. He's been doing well, but no. He's been doing well, but that doesn't mean he has the right to be there. That's a problem.
That's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. Exactly. We're saying he is good enough to play in certain games, not all.
No, what I'm saying is,
but he shouldn't. That's what I'm saying even more. He shouldn't. It doesn't matter.
No, I agree. I fully agree. And my point is, building on what you say, no, of course, Daron, Gamo, Ubeymar, even Heno being the best player we may have right now, it should, like, they shouldn't be there because they're not good for the team. But if by any chance you are to play him, any of those 4 players, or 5, if you will, they must play only one of 3 games. And what Caparros did was way too much. Like, was gamble way above what he should have gambled.
Yeah, Henrik played every minute of every game. He never got subbed off once, which I think was a mistake.
Almost same.
Same thing with
even
Campos.
Barcelian could have played striker, for example,
Mhm.
and could have given the opportunity. Let's not say given the opportunity. Could have played Spertian, because we know Spertian can play. It's not like we're giving him an opportunity.
Yeah.
Spertian could have played. Barcelian could have played striker. Let's say, because we have the goal scoring problem.
Yeah.
We have that. Put the guy who's been doing so many assists. Put him to score. Let's say.
The
Why
Liechtenstein
not?
game. The Liechtenstein game was tailored for Spertian, and he didn't even play a minute. That, I don't know, man.
Speed. You need speed in
More
the
than
opponents that are
disappointing.
slow. You need speed. You need energy.
But what I'm saying is against Liechtenstein, a team with a tightly knit defense, as we tweeted, you need a player like Spertian, who's not just fast, but who knows how to crack a defense, be it off the ball runs to, more importantly, filtered passes like he does by the tons, and more importantly, he can score as well from long distance, short
We're not
distance.
the first to do, though.
I don't even think we need to look at offense to drive this point home. Look at defense. Against Liechtenstein was a perfect opportunity to play Arman Hovhannisyan at left back. Was a perfect opportunity to have Kartasyan at central defense, partnering alongside Haroyan. Was a perfect opportunity to give Derderian 90 minutes, which he did, only forced through injury. I think if Hambarzumian wasn't injured, Derderian wasn't going to play that game. But you could have had Derderian, Kartasyan, Arman Hovhannisyan play against Liechtenstein, and your defense was going to be solid, and it was going to be good, and it might not have conceded a goal. So
I have a very specific problem with the goal, because some people point Yurchenko's way.
Yurchenko fucked up. Yeah, but let's be honest. He made the
mistake. Yeah. He made the mistake. On the one side, yes, he made the mistake, but he comes off an injury, and he was rushed into the team. Maybe that is not an excuse, considering how the level we are playing at. But B, and more importantly, that shot should not have been made. And the 2 more important, if you will, people who have the blame for that shot being made are the midfielders, the 2 central midfielders, more especially Solomon Udo, who had just one slip up on that game, and it happened to be on that goal. And second central midfielder, Heno, who was not even near where he should have been in the mark. And that's my problem with Heno for 6 years. He doesn't mark. It's like he doesn't want to help the team defend. And that's not a captain. That's not a captain.
Just to clarify on this idea, firstly, me personally, I've seen this before. It's not like it's the first time this thing is happening, that you're playing the same, not just the same players, but always selecting the same players. I see it with the Cyprus national team as well. It's not like it's just with Armenia. The thing, though, is that we were expecting this not to happen for this time, because the previous one, if you all remember, we're pretty hyped up after Nations League, and we got spot on predictions with the squad, and we thought it was time to build on that, but some things did not turn out to be the way we wanted it to be in terms of the squad selections.
There's a saying based on that, and I love the fact that you're bringing it up. You can, I don't know if it's like it goes kind of like, it's a stupid thing to try the same thing over and over again and expect different results.
That's what it is, because It's again the same idea, bringing the same thinking of that you're gonna get the same results with the same way of working things out. If you need to build now, let's take a quick example just to wrap it up. Let's say Kardashian doesn't play now. Let's say he doesn't play for another year because he needs to build experience. That's the excuse, let's say. Again, doesn't come up. By that time, he's going to be 28. Firstly, he would not have
26.
built experience. And second of all, would be sleeping on quality. It's the two important things that are missing with his national team.
I'm still holding on to the hope that Gail Andonian goes back to being in the French First Division.
Wow.
He should have gone to Armenia.
Wow.
Yo, but for real, we can't do the same thing over and over again and expect different things, different results.
This will come over time, though.
Yes.
We know, but it has happened so many times, you know. I mean,
well, it needs to happen.
We have changed the course and seen actual results, as you said, Chance. And now we're back to what led us to poor results and, more importantly, poor performances sustained over years and years of playing awful. No, I can't feel represented and identified by that. I mean,
maybe this was the hit we needed.
Exactly. We have in our power as fans and Armenians to voice our concerns and bring them up. And my concern is, please let us not forget our mistakes, be it on football or outside the pitch. We have made so many mistakes and we keep repeating them for a reason. No, we have to demand change, and if that leads to the most important players and the best known players being dropped for the sake of the team, then so be it. We cannot forget. We cannot have that sort of amnesia and give them another chance. We have given them many, many chances, and there are all other players that deserve that chance. For instance, Wonderkid, Spurzian. We have youth. Why not trust the youth and give them a chance now? We have Kardashian. It was the perfect opening. We have to voice these things out, you know?
Yes.
It's like we have amnesia or something.
Well, speaking of amnesia, unfortunately, we will not be forgetting this set of matches anytime soon, and we don't have the luxury of time of forgetting because the next set of Armenia's matches are going to be coming very quickly in a few weeks' time in October. If we're looking at the current state of the table of UEFA FIFA World Cup qualifiers Group J, Germany is now top of the group with 15 points after 6 matches. They have 5 wins, 0 draws, and 1 loss with a plus 15 goal difference that we helped greatly contribute to. Armenia is currently in second place with 11 points, having 3 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss, and a total goal difference of -2, greatly coming from that match against Germany, of course. Romania is directly behind us in third place on 10 points, and followed by Macedonia with 9 points, Iceland with 4 points, and Liechtenstein with 1 point. Now, overall, we are still in a good position, and our destiny is in our own hands. We win the games, we can get second place. It's that simple. Our match against Iceland and Romania are going to be arguably the most important matches in our history because it is really going to dictate our destiny. If we manage to get 3 points against Iceland, that will put us on 14 points going into Romania away, who we anticipate will who do Romania play next? I believe Romania plays, let's see, just so I'm very clear on this. Romania plays, oh, that's not even telling me. Great. Anyway, doesn't matter who Romania plays because they are currently right behind us on 1 point. And if we can defeat them and raise that gap to 4 points, it's very likely that Romania is not going to be able to catch up to us if we get a result against Macedonia at home, such as a draw. Guys, we have now broken down the reasons why things went wrong in Armenia's World Cup qualifier. We can only hope that in the next few weeks, Joaquin Kaparos rectifies these issues and comes back and gets us 6 points out of 6 points in October and puts us in pole position to get second place and get into the playoffs of the World Cup qualifiers. I think the squad release is going to be a very clear indicator of that, because as we have said previously, whenever we've looked at this squad and we've said, no, this isn't it, we tend to have had poor results. We expect the squad to be released on, I would say, September 30th. So in about less than 3 weeks, in 18 days, this squad will be released from the time of this recording. I think that's going to give us all the indicators we need to see how we think this is going to go. Of course, until then, a lot can happen, but we just have to be hopeful and wait. And until then, let's just enjoy the women's national team matches that are going to be coming our way. Let's enjoy Alashkert's European campaign. Let's support Armenian football. I have been your host, Adam, and I've been joined by Chadent and Armen today. Thank you for listening to Football Kentron. We will be back in a couple of weeks' time to let you know how Alashkert performed, to let you know how the women's national team is doing, and to give our routine updates on Armenian football players around the world. Thank you for listening, guys. Goodbye.